Today, on our international journey of things that go bump in the night, we travel to Malaysia and Indonesia to explore four creatures of Southeast Asian folklore. So come with me as we go in search of what lies beneath. First up is the Pokong. They are described as being ghosts with rotting, decomposing green faces, and holes where their eyes should be wrapped and tied up in a burial shroud, which is the custom in most Islamic burial rites in Southeast Asia. According to traditional Malay and Indonesian beliefs, the soul remains on earth for 40 days. During that time, if the ties of the burial shroud are not released, the body will then become a pokong. And because the feet of the person is also bound by this death shroud, they will start hopping out of their graves to tell the deceased's family to undo the bindings. Once the bindings are released, the person's soul is released to the afterlife. It has also been said that the pokongs can be in the service of a powerful witch or shaman, as puppets and vessels for their black magic and witchcraft. Because of the way they move, they are often compared to the Chinese Jiangshi. In general, the pokong is usually harmless unless you stand in their way. There are two ways to defeat them, and that's by stabbing with a wooden sword, as well as trapping them in a wooden box, or a house, or even a closet using a binding ritual that is performed by a bomo, which is a Malaysian shaman. The shaman will sometimes use roof tiles in the ceremony, as well as a red string and also the blood of a black dog. The color red represents death in Malay, Indonesian, and Chinese culture. It is very prolific in the practice of the bomo shaman. These shaman practice a form of martial arts known as pencak silat. There is a variation of this martial art that focuses on black magic, but however this form is now currently extinct. This form of martial arts at the time was revered for being the most powerful and spiritual form to practice dark magic. A spiritual conduit, so to speak. So if you see one of these pokong spirits, it's best to stay out of its way. Otherwise, you're going to have a very bad day. Now moving on to a female spirit known as the Hantu Kamkam. The Hantu Kamkam were women that formed a proverbial pact with the devil. They would go to a witch doctor, or bomo, in which they have a golden needle implanted into their faces in order to become more beautiful, and be admired by the local men of the village. But there is a caveat to this obtained beauty. They are not allowed to look into a mirror for 10 days. Those who manage to achieve this are given the beauty they so desperately crave. But to the ones that disobey this clause in the deal, they become the dreaded Hantu Kamkam. They are often seen wearing a jabab, or face-covering headscarf to cover their horrific faces. In order to make up for the grave mistake of looking into a mirror, they must consume the blood of a virgin. And because of this, the easiest targets are usually children and young teens. This particular Hantu is often used as a proverbial boogeyman to scare young children, mostly as not to bathe or comb their hair at midnight. Some say it wanders at night looking for its next victim. It cannot be defeated or slain in any way, but it can be warded away with Islamic prayers. The telltale sign that one would be looking for if it has visited their home are the deep, bloody scratch marks usually located on their front door. So if you're in Malaysia or Indonesia at night, and you just so happen to be a virgin or child, don't travel alone. Or it just might be you that'll end up being its next meal. It seems in the case of the Hantu Kamkam, with great beauty comes a great beast. Also, there really isn't much information on this ghost, so if you have any more information, please feel free to leave a comment below. Our next subject is the horror of the Genting Highlands. The Genting Highlands is a location not only best known for its nightlife and casinos, but it is also very well known for its paranormal activity and the haunted First World Hotel. This particular creature isn't a ghost or hantu as the ones previously mentioned were, and very little is known about it. But it's been described as a cryptid or even possibly a demon. But it is said that the creature does reside in the forest of the Genting Highlands. There was a rather infamous story about a young couple who were driving one night down the Genting Highlands highway. After a while of driving, the car was beginning to lose power and eventually came to a halt, breaking down. The man driving had no choice but to pull over and figure out what the problem was. After 20 minutes passed under the hood, the man got frustrated and impatient. He couldn't figure out what the problem was, constantly repeating the words, "I just had this car serviced yesterday." He told his wife that he needs to find a call box to phone for help, also telling her to lock the doors and wait for him to return. Hours have passed, with no sign of her husband. As his wife waited patiently for his return, suddenly, a police officer appeared, pulling up slowly, lights shining at the car. The officer exited his patrol car, staying behind his door and being very cautious, pulling out a loudspeaker, informing the woman to exit the car, walk toward him, and not to look back. As the woman walked toward the police officer, she stopped at the halfway point between her car and the patrol car, and she did look back. When she did, all she saw was the remains of her husband on the roof of the car, being devoured by a hideous creature. The creature darted into the inky black darkness of the forest, leaving what was left of the mangled remains of her husband behind, a crushed torso, a severed arm, and his decapitated head. What's even stranger is that this has only ever happened once. If only he waited for help, he still would have been ahead of the game. While on the subject of the Genting Highlands, we move on to the story of Rio Apartment, which is a hotel in the area that is well known for being extremely haunted. There have been reports of people watching from the other side of the halls, as well as blood-stained sheets appearing out of the blue. People were also randomly losing consciousness while showering, not to mention the countless suicides by hapless gamblers who lost everything at the nearby casino, as well as suicide victims who want to take revenge on those who have broken their hearts, and people they've been hurt by, ending their lives while wearing a red cheongsam, which is a traditional Chinese dress. And it is said that if someone commits suicide or is buried while wearing this garment, legend has it they come back as a vengeful spirit. A simple Google search of this hotel will yield multiple results of various hauntings and paranormal experiences. It seems broken hearts and empty pockets are a certain recipe for disaster, even in the hereafter. Thank you for joining me on this expedition of the unknown and mysterious folklore of Southeast Asia. Are the stories I've told true? I'll leave that for you to decide. So once again, thank you for joining me on this journey to uncover what lies beneath.